Think you're too old to start something new? Think again. Today's guest, Ginny MacColl, is a true inspiration. At 72, she is the oldest competitive American Ninja warrior. She started competitive swimming in her 60s. She didn't start weightlifting until her 60s. She provides lots of insight and inspiration in today's episode. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Alli Kerr.
And I'm Shawna Kaminski. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
We just love having amazing ladies here on the Girls Talk Healthy Aging. And Ginny, I just can't wait to find out more about your story and how it all, just the whole journey. You're this amazing ninja who's broken a world record recently. So of course we want to hear about all that stuff, but let's just dive in and start back, because before you got into ninja, there's this whole other life where you were an actress, and let's start back in that time frame, and then we'll just go from there and hear about Ginny.
Okay, I'd be happy to tell you. It could go on for a long time because I'm 72 years old, so I'll just get that out there right away. But yeah, I think it's kind of interesting that I remember so clearly that when I was 16, I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee. I made a promise to myself that I would never stop exercising. Now, I don't know really what drew me to that, but I swore that I would always keep exercising, and I've kept to that. But I was mostly a dancer, so I was a very shy kid. My parents put me into dance, and that was a form of expression for me. And the rest is history. I went to New York when I was 20, which was quite a journey from Knoxville to New York City, and trying to figure out, how to audition, where the dance companies were, where everything was. It was the best of times and the worst of times, I guess. And so I was in a couple of dance companies and on scholarship there, and that was my life. I ate, slept, worked out as a dancer, and I was a modern dancer. So if you're thinking of what you see on TV today, it was nothing like that. It was more interpretive. It was more telling a story. And from there, I started auditioning for Broadway shows and got in a show in 1973 called Pippin. And Pippin was quite renowned for its dancing from the choreographer, Bob Fosse. It's got, the jazz hands, and it was a wonderful show to be a dancer in. And I stayed with that show for quite a while. And that's interesting too, because when you're on Broadway, you're doing the same steps, the same placement on the stage. I mean, you have to be exactly the same every single night. The tempo of the music has to be the same, all these things to make the show magic. And everybody knows where everybody's placement is. So I got to understudy a lead as well, and she was gone for 2 weeks. So I got to play a lead in a Broadway show for 2 whole weeks. So that was really, really exciting, and like the top. I felt that I was at the top of the world. And I started to, when that show closed, I started auditioning more for industrials, which are like Broadway shows for products, and commercials. And that's where my career kind of moved into a whole commercial world, doing everything from Charmin to Folgers to GM cars and Sizzline and Jordache jeans. And at one point, I think I did over 150 regional and national commercials, and they are now on YouTube. So your audience and yourselves can see them. It's, under my name. And they're quite fun because back in those days, in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have DVRs. So, and we didn't have all the special effects that they do. So there was one commercial I did for Sizzline, which is move over bacon, there's something leaner. And in that, there was a guy on scaffolding, and he had fishing wire hanging from something like a puppet. And he had to attach that to the bacon in the fry pan, lift it up, and send it off. And that had to be perfect. So that we had to do it over and over and over because, the wiggling or it wasn't coming up right and you can actually see that in the commercial where the middle kind of rises up and it goes off. But I mentioned that one because if an actor doesn't have their lines perfect at that time and he gets the product right, then, nobody's happy with you. Let me put it that way. So it's very important to always stay on top of it. But it was a great time of life. It really was. And from there, I met my husband. I got married, had 2 children, all in New York City. So I was there for like 25 years. And as time went on, my marriage failed. And I had to move out of the city. I had to give up acting. Swore I'd always get back to it at some day. But I moved out of the city to the Poconos, and it was beautiful there, but very hard to make a living. And I had to get a real job for the first time. But I couldn't get hired because, as a single mom with 2 kids, it was a very tough time. And then the blizzards came about. And one of the things I mention about this is, with the acting and the dancing, I had to deal with a lot of rejection. I had to be persistent. Nothing can stop you. You have to believe in yourself. And the same thing happened as a single mom outside of the city, not being able to act anymore and try to find a way of raising the kids. I realized that it was a lot of the same things, that nobody else is going to do it for you. You have to. If there's a bat in the house, you're going to have to deal how to deal with that. And then if the snow is so huge that you can't get out, you have to deal with that too. So it was always, well, let me put it this way. There was always an obstacle in the way. And we all have obstacles. Some are harder than others, but it's finding your way through it. It's getting up again and going, all right, I got to do this. And so I think there's a theme in my life of that is like, if you have a failure or it's not going well, you have to get up, train harder, and go back at it. So that's kind of my story until I met a new man who I married eventually, and we retired to North Carolina. And he's extremely supportive. And one of the reasons we moved here was because Wilmington was considered the Hollywood of the South. There was a lot of film being down here, a lot of Nicholas Sparks kind of movies. And I thought, this is it. I'm a granny, but I'm coming back to acting. And so, dreams can come true. You can if you want it enough. So I got an agent and I started auditioning, and I was lucky enough to book one with Diane Keaton called Poms, P-O-M-S, Poms like cheerleader. And there were 8 of us cheerleaders with Diane Keaton and Jackie Weaver and Rhea Perlman. It was a great cast, a lot of fun to work with. I had to do a split in it. So that was also something I had to work very hard on. So I got back to my acting, and that was the first dream. But then all of a sudden, my daughter was doing American Ninja Warrior. So I was watching her, and I was cheering her on for all those years. So instead of me just talking forever on that, do you have any questions about that, or do you want me to go on into the ninja world?
Well, I'll just jump in and say that your daughter is Jessie Graff. So for those American Ninja Warrior fans, you will know exactly who that is. And we hope to get her on the podcast. We were just talking about that later. So look for a later episode. So yes, so you had this life with acting, dance, and then this whole change of events with, single mom raising a kid. And how many children do you have?
Two.
Two children?
I had 2 kids, and I had 3 dogs at the time too. So we're all out there in the Poconos.
Wow. Yeah. And now you can see Ginny on American Ninja Warrior. So Shawna, did you have any Any questions so far?
Well, I mean, I think I love your analogy of how, as a current ninja warrior getting over obstacles, how you have this focus, looking back on your life, you can see the focus of my life has always been getting over obstacles and relying on myself and problem solving and finding ways to get things done. So I really like that perspective. I'm very curious as to how you went from, all right, you're an actress now in North Carolina. Now I just I want to hear more. What happened next?
Well, then I started swimming, actually. I had always wanted to learn more things other than just, doing the breaststroke with my head out of the water. And I never knew how to do butterfly. I never knew any of these things. And down here, there was a coach at the community college. So I didn't do that at first because it had to be there at 7:30 in the morning. And I'd had enough of that because I didn't tell you this, but I eventually ended up in radio. Is the job I got when I left acting. So I was in radio for almost 20 years. That was just, to bring in the cash and make ends meet. So I wanted to take, some kind of lessons and learn how to swim and dive off the block. And that turned into learning the flip turn and competing in the local, state, and nationals as the senior Olympics. And I was able to make some records, which I was really excited at. And the nice thing about it is it's age related. So it's like 70 to 74 and 75. So I was in a bracket of people my own age, which was nice because ninja, it's age 15 to the end of time. So,
oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody competes together. Yeah.
So, and at the same time, I was going to see Jessie and cheering her on. And, she was the first woman to be able to complete stage 1. And it was thrilling. She was just becoming a star. But at the same time, when I would see her going through those obstacles, she was strong. She was healthy. She was confident. She was graceful. And she had muscles. And I just thought she looked wonderful. And that was one of those moments again where I went, I want to get strong. I want to get stronger. Now, I didn't grow up that way. I mean, we didn't have sports for women. I think in school, in high school, we had maybe 3 sports for women, which I didn't do: swimming, volleyball, and track. I went the majorette and cheerleading kind of way. And that was basically what we had. And Title IX came around in 1972, I believe. I was already in New York by then. But we also had these social norms, like you don't want to get too bulky. So women really didn't, spend any time trying to lift weights or to get strong. And of course, it could have been different in different parts of the country, but I think it was more the norm that women were kind of told that they just weren't strong enough and couldn't get strong enough. And also it was, when you're 50 and over, you're over the hill, or you shouldn't sweat, or girls should be seen but not heard. I mean, it's not that somebody, taught you that in school. It was just kind of one of those things that you assimilated. And I think it still goes on today. I think a lot of people, I hear them say, well, I don't want to get too bulky. And it's hard to get too bulky.
Yes. Yeah, not so easy.
But you get such strength. And like I said, the confidence that comes with that and the ability to have health and longevity is so important. And like I never did that until I was age 63. And I saw Jessie up there and she told me things to do. And one of them was to do pull-ups. And I tried to do pull-ups and that was ridiculous. Even though I was a dancer, I just didn't have the upper body strength. It was a different kind of strength, I guess. So I went to a personal trainer and I said, my goal is 5 pull-ups. And I thought that was attainable. And I think that's an important part of the picture for people is you make attainable goals. Like not, I'm going to lose 100 pounds or, I mean, it's a nice long-term goal, but I think you want to have little places that you can feel that accomplishment as you go along.
Performance goals.
Yeah. Yeah. So otherwise, you'd just be knocking your head against the wall going, I'll never get there. I'll never get there.
Mm-hmm.
So I really believe in those attainable goals. And so at 63, that's what I started doing. And it took me an entire year to get a pull-up because you have to build the chest and the back muscles and the arms and you have to work the legs. You have to do the whole body. And in that time, American Ninja Warrior suggested, I think Jessie may have shown something of my progress on doing pull-ups. And they said, that'll make a great story. Let's do a segment on mother-daughter. Mm-hmm. So in season 8, they did the most beautiful production of us working out together and doing silly stuff. And it put it in my head, why don't you send in a video? You have to send in a 3-minute video that shows skill and personality. So I went, I don't know if I can do all that. But I went, you know what? I might as well just send it in and see what happens. We'll go from there. So I got the call in January for for the actual competition of the qualifiers, what they call it, to be in March. And my daughter Jessie says to me, well, Mom, you better get to some kind of competition, at least somewhere. Let's see what's going on here. So I went, good idea. And I went to one in Atlanta and I felt out of place. I didn't know what to do. And I looked at the first obstacle and I'm like, I don't know if I can jump and get that ring. And I kept looking at it and pasting it off. And my friend told me, where your eyes are looking, your hands will follow. And that's what happened. I caught the ring. I did the zip line and I got through like maybe 5 or 6 obstacles. So
wow,
it was pretty exciting. But the sad story is when I got there and I got on that podium and they go 3, 2, 1, doot, 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 doot. I'm thinking, what have I done? The steps are so far apart. It's over water there at angles. I don't know if I can do this. And so there I go. I don't know if you heard that. That was a fan that just came on. Did that?
No, we didn't hear it. We're good.
So, I'm standing there and I'm like, they're so far apart. And I go, well, here goes. And I just jumped and my foot slipped on this, I think it was the second step. And down I went into the water, just devastated, going, how did this happen? I mean, this couldn't have happened. I don't know. And, just shock, total shock, devastation. It was like, I don't know if anybody out there is, I'm sure you've had failures before, but this is in front of millions of people. I mean, when you fail big. And it's interesting that happens in the story of Palms when I did that movie too. If you fail, you get up, you train harder, and you go on again. But it took me a long time because the athletes make those obstacles look so easy. I mean, they really do. The first one, they just ran through it. But I can tell you that they're not as easy as they make them look.
Jenny, I have to give you props. You said just doing your first ninja competition, you made it through 5 obstacles. And I've done ninja competitions. I don't think I've ever made it through 5 obstacles in a ninja. So yes, they're way harder. Yeah. And that's just the smaller competition, not the
leagues.
Not the the leagues. Yeah. You go, girl.
So anyway, I learned a lot of lessons, and I think you got to take failure as a motivator. My husband was really good about saying, well, you're going to do it again. I'm like, what? why would I do that again? And he's going, because you can. And my daughter was saying, you can't let one fall define you. You can sit back and be in retirement and enjoy your life, but you could also work harder and, learn more about what it's all about, get some technique, go to more competitions, find out what it's all about. And that's ultimately what I ended up doing. And I went and tested, because they allow you to test obstacles. And that was a way to feel a little more confident too. So that's kind of the story until, COVID hit. I didn't do it again. And maybe for 5 years until not this season, but last season, season 15, I came back and they had changed the first obstacle. So it was a brand new obstacle. I'm like, oh no, it's a pole vault. It's like,
Yeah.
if you've seen the show, you have to jump on a mini tramp, which I didn't have around. A mini tramp to a pole, and the pole starts to fall. You have to climb up it and land on a platform. I got through the obstacle, but I didn't jump high enough. I had to really struggle and then go real tight to the pole so I didn't hit the water. But I didn't know it at the time. But when they aired the show in June of last year, they said I was the oldest person to complete an obstacle. And I'm like, oldest person, maybe the oldest woman, but the oldest person? Is that possible? They must be wrong. So
you were the oldest person to complete an obstacle at last year's American Ninja Warrior.
Right.
I guess, was it a qualifying round?
Yes.
And it doesn't matter which round, but yeah, amazing.
Yeah. So it was really exciting. And Jessie was on the sidelines for me. And so that was neat because it really showed a mother-daughter bond. One of the great things about Ninja is that more and more families are getting involved. You're seeing more parents and children doing it, families doing it. It's such a great bonding. And we go to gyms and we have fun together, and she teaches me things. So it was a nice mother-daughter. It was also when I got to the second obstacle. If you didn't release on the first go down, because it went really fast. It was called Grease Lightning, and it goes really fast. And if you didn't release right away, chances are you're not going to make it. But what I did is I kept pushing myself back and going and trying again and pushing back. So I was hanging on to these nunchucks for, I don't know, like a minute or something. So, and I could never generate the power to make that dismount. But it was enough to show that I didn't want to give up. It was enough to show that I was strong now, because I was actually sitting there with my arms up like this, holding on to nunchucks. So it showed a lot of things, despite the fact that I ended up having to go, well, I wish I'd gone, okay, anybody got any ideas?
Yes, I saw that episode, Ginny, and that was amazing that you held on way longer than I would have held on. I would have been gone a long time ago. So kudos to you. And one thing I want to point out in your story is that it's just so amazing. Well, I have a question. What age did you start American Ninja Warrior when the first time? How old were what age were you?
65.
65. And then, if you don't mind, what is your age currently? How long have you been doing this?
I'm 72 now, but I was 71 when I got the oldest. Well, or was I 72? I guess if they go by January, December, I would have been 72. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I love about your story that you just show that we can reinvent ourselves at different stages in our life. I also love that we have time. You had that time in your life where you had to make ends meet, making money, getting a paycheck, doing what you need to do with a real job, but you didn't put your goals completely away. You came back to things, you came back to acting, and then you reinvented, you went to swimming, and then you got into this whole ninja thing that wasn't even a thing. So
it was not planned.
That is such a lesson, though, that we have time, and that, one of the things we love to say is it's not too late. Regardless of where you're at, we can all have dreams, have goals, and we can all get started. So kudos and thank you for being an example of that.
Well, thank you. And that is one of my motto, as you can see here, is strength is ageless. And on the back, I have you're never too old and it's never too late. And that is so true. And I want people to know, and seniors out there and everybody, that, you know, you can start. You can start. It's not going to be too late. You're not too old. And it's vital. It's vital to your health. And I'll tell you one story about that. And it's about osteoporosis. And the step before that is osteopenia. And I've talked to a lot of people at ninja competitions, and a lot of women, most women, have never heard the term osteopenia. Nor had I until I was in my 40s, and I went to the doctor, and she said, "Okay, you've got osteopenia." And I'm like, "What? What is that?" And what do I do? How do I get rid of that? She goes, "Well, you can take calcium." So I went, "Oh, okay, gosh, my bone." I didn't know that could be a thing, that you're going to lose 1 to 2% of your bone mass per year. So I just took her at her word and took the calcium and went on. But when I started lifting weights with the personal trainer, after 2 years, when I went to have the bone density test, I had reversed it to normal. So, you know, we don't think of these things, or we're not schooled in them. But just think, if women were lifting weights with proper form, with somebody telling them how to do it, because it's easy to hurt yourself. But if they started at an early age, maybe there wouldn't be osteopenia and osteoporosis. Maybe. I mean, I know there's a lot of things that people, you know, have to have it and have to take the medicine. But wouldn't it be wonderful if that went away, if we lifted weights, if we did the cardio for our heart, if we, you know, at 40, you start losing your balance. And does anybody think about practicing balance? You know, hold on to the counter and see if you can stand on one foot. Because a lot of times what people do, your bones get weak, you lose your balance, you fall, break a bone, or break a hip, worse. And that's a terrible thing that can happen. So there are so many things that are happening that you can, you know, fix when it comes to balance of your heart, or text neck. That's becoming a huge thing with all the kids that are looking down, and we look at recipes and ingredients, and we're in front of our computers, and now this has become a real problem with the weight of the head, 10 to 12 pounds. You take that and do it forward, you're starting to have these rolled shoulders. I want people to know right now that there are things that you can do to keep different diseases or problems at bay for as long as possible, because you want to be able to lift your own groceries. You want to be able to play with the kids. You want to be able to open jars. And the best way to do that is to keep active, keep moving. Arthritis. I mean, that's another one of those things that a lot of people have, but I take, I move a lot. I mean, I use hand grip. By hanging, you're getting more grip. I take the rubber bands from broccoli, and I sit and watch TV, and I'll do this 50 times.
Yes. She's opening and closing her hands. If y'all are listening to the podcast, she's got the rubber band around her fingers, and then she's just like opening and closing her fingers.
Right.
And I love that. I love that you talk about the reversing osteopenia, because one of the messages there is there's so much we have control over. You know, aging, yes, that happens, and we're all going to, Father Time has a perfect record. We're all getting older, but there's so much that we can do to reverse things or slow things down or prevent a lot of health problems. And then you were talking about the arthritis, and then
the arthritis, right?
And balance.
And the balance is important too, because if you lose some bone mass and your bones soften, and you fall because you've lost your balance, you could break a hip, and that's a terrible thing at an older age. So you want to work on your balance. I work on balance a lot. And, you know, you want to hold on to a counter. You want to see if you can balance on one leg, but always, you know, have something safety so that you can hold on to. I don't know what level people are at, but it's something that should be practiced all the time. I mean, I brush my teeth with one, you know, and stand on one foot. And then when I change sides, I change feet. And
yes. My clients, they complain when I have them do one leg exercises or balance or grip. You know, they those are some, because they're hard, and those things are really hard for us if we haven't practiced them or worked on them.
But like anything else,
you get better.
Yeah. If you do it every day, you do. And I know there's so much time in the day. I mean, if you could do everything that you're supposed to be doing all the time, you'd be constantly with the broccoli rubber bands and the brushing the teeth and lifting.
But those are things we're already doing. I mean, think about how much time this is what I talk about. If you're watching TV, you can be doing something while you're watching TV. If you're brushing your teeth, you're doing that while you're doing. So it's not like you're taking extra time out of your day. The way you're doing it, that's a really smart way.
Yeah, for sure. And I do a lot of trying to do mobility too, because a lot of times I notice with swimmers in the national senior games, there are women in there. There was one in this last national game. She was 96. And what a range of motion she had with the backstroke. And I just thought how wonderful that was. She got 6 world records when I guess they were American, because it was just the Senior Olympics in the USA. But 6 records for, you know, just winning things.
Yeah.
and being that mobile. And
the
there are
mobility.
people older that are doing flip turns and diving off the block. And, you know, it's inspiring to me to see people in their 80s and their 90s that are active. And luckily we're seeing that more and more, but you need that as role models. We want to see our seniors out walking, and, you know, more and more this is happening, which I'm happy to see. But
so much better than just worrying about how we look, and, you know, being, like you talked about earlier, being strong versus the earlier messages, being strong, being able to do things for yourself, and doing it so that we can live longer and live better lives and more active lives. So, Ginny, tell me, you also have another world record, right? A Guinness book. As far as, tell us about that before we wrap up, because we want people to know.
That came to me. I mean, who knew getting older could be so much fun? But
exactly, people need it.
So they approached me. They said that they had to clarify, make sure, but it's the oldest female ninja competitor.
Yes, and that's the Guinness Book of World Records, right?
It is in the book 2024.
Yay, go Ginny.
I don't know.
Oh, I see it behind you. Yes, he's got a picture of it.
Yeah. So that was very, very, very cool. And
so you can break Guinness World Record. Who knew? Like, I'm sure in your 20s you weren't thinking, hey, when I'm in my 70s, I'm going to be breaking Guinness Book of World Records. Like, it never is too late, Ginny.
No, that's for sure. Yeah, it was. What it did too is the promo. They used me in the promos, and it opened up the whole world to me, because podcasts, TV in India and South Africa and Poland and Mexico and Canada and all over, the New York Post. I mean, I was inundated once it came out and they promoted it. It was just a whirlwind, and I just loved being able to speak to people all over the world that literally we have this problem everywhere.
Right.
And it would be wonderful to get more people out there that are talking about it and are seeing the benefits of it, so that we can eradicate some of these problems.
Yeah. So, Ginny, if you had a wish for our listeners today, what would your wish be?
I bet you can guess.
probably have a few ideas, but I'll let you tell them.
Yeah, no, I would say to keep moving. That moving parts don't rust.
I love it.
So you want to move all those joints. You want to strengthen the joints. Getting stronger is a good way to think about it instead of wanting to lose weight. We want to get stronger. And along with that will come the diet and the desire to be healthier and live healthier. But movement is important. Cardio, I like to think of it as, when you're moving fast and you're getting out of breath, that you are getting that blood circulating faster and less work on your heart. The heart is a muscle. So the cardio, you want to do that 4 times. I mean, get out there and start walking.
Yeah.
Then the lifting weights, also super important for your bones, for your muscles. I mean, I know that, as you get older, it's hard to open jars. But if you have worked your hands and wrists and arms and get rid of the the underneath the arm extra skin there, that you're going to feel so much better.
And my wish would be that, well, of course, that we take Ginny's advice and that we set new goals no matter what age or stage of life we're in. There may be some more Guinness Book World Record listeners, or maybe it's not a Guinness Book of World Record you're shooting for, but just find something that you want to learn, something new, something different. Challenge yourself no matter what. Yes, no matter what age.
Yeah. And you'll never know unless you try.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Alli, on Instagram at Alli Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shawna, on Instagram at Shawna Kaminski. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback. If you're enjoying the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, please subscribe and share it with other health-minded women. Ratings and reviews are also much appreciated and help us get our message out to a larger audience.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.